interviewed Kara Corthron, who has written on HBO Max's The Flight Attendant and is currently writing on 2 shows, Netflix's thriller You and Apple Plus's Servant. Stay tuned towards the end of the interview when she talks about moving to Los Angeles, how to break in and how not to, and more about the crazy world of writing for television. Don't forget to subscribe and let me know in the comments what stood out to you, and I will see you on the page. So hi, Kara. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk a little bit about being a playwright who also works in TV. First, I'd like to ask you, I know you grew up in Maryland and your sister Kia is a playwright. So I'm wondering, was your family a theater attending family, or how did you guys get exposed to the theater?
We grew up in a small town. So there wasn't a whole lot of cultural activity there. There were a couple of theaters, but mostly community theaters. But it's kind of a mystery as to how this whole thing kind of happened. My sister, I think that she just sort of fell into playwriting by accident. Like, she originally was going to go into like journalism, but then she just randomly took a playwriting class in college and was like, oh, this is what I meant to do. Like, she really just loved like the live reaction of people in the room, and what I totally get. But then I think being exposed to that, I actually wanted to be an actor for a long time. Well, briefly, I wanted to be a dancer until I realized I didn't have the discipline for that. And then I tried to be an actor, and that was what I studied in college, because I did enjoy performing. And I kind of since I was little, I did like dance school and things like that. So I really liked kind of being on stage. But I kind of burnt out on that lifestyle because acting is a lot for people who have done it. And the thing that eventually happened, and I always kind of felt like playwriting is my sister's thing. I need to find my own lane and my own way. And I knew I was going to be creative, but I wasn't always sure how. But when I lived in New York for a long time, and but when I was still auditioning, probably like 15 or so years ago, as an actor, I just got really tired of being called in to audition for terrible parts and with terrible material. And this is not even a lie. I once got sized for a character that was crack whore, which is also funny because it was like, I was like, hi, it's the 2000s. It's not the 90s anymore. There are a lot of questions I had about that, and I didn't do it. And I started to think I could do better myself, which was kind of surprising to me. So then I had a brief period where I thought, maybe I'll be one of those downtown solo performers. I'll write for myself. I'll do one-person shows. And so I kind of tried to go that route for a bit. And I loved the writing part. But then when I would start to do it, I was like, oh, this is way too vulnerable. I should get other people to say it for me. And I was like, oh, that makes me a playwright. Like, it literally was that slow of a process. So eventually I just gave into it and was like, I guess this is kind of my thing. And then through playwriting, I was able to sort of find other genres. Like, I think really just the playwriting gave me the confidence to kind of go out for different things, because I always wanted to write books, but I didn't have really any training in that regard. And I wasn't sure how to begin. But once I got a little bit of traction as a playwright, I just started to feel a little bit more confident. And then I started pursuing that path. I've been working with a theatrical agent for a long time, many years, but she moved to a larger agency a couple of years back. And they had a bigger TV department. And she said, do you care if I send some of your plays to TV agents here? And I was like, sure. And then I connected with an agent that way, and it's really changed a lot for me in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I had read that your one of your inspirations was reading a Judy Blume book back in the day. I was curious which one it was.
Oh my gosh, I love Judy Blume. There are like a lot that I love, but the one that I kind of returned to over and over again was "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret." I actually tried writing a young adult novel, just like let me see if I can do it. And I was like in my low 20s. I didn't really know. So I was definitely a green baby. My sister read it and she really liked it. And she had this thought. She had a friend that worked at a major publishing house. She's like, let's just see if she can give you some feedback and some thoughts. And I was like, cool. I would love that. Just thinking this will be kind of like a conversation, you know, very, very casual. things got lost in translation along the way, and it was looked at as a submission. So she didn't even read it. Like, it went to another editor, somebody that I don't even know. And so a few months later, I received a 2-page single-spaced rejection letter talking about everything wrong with the book. And she ended it by saying that she's like, writing isn't for everybody, like suggesting maybe I find a different field. So I was like, oh, okay, I can't do that. And I definitely let it affect me probably more than it should have because I was so young. But about 9 years later, I was like, hey, I still want to, and that could have been a lady that was having a very bad day. Let me try again. And then that book actually got published.
That's amazing. Yeah. But during that time, were you still playwriting? I mean, you didn't just throw in the towel for writing.
I was. And what was fortunate is that, because I probably could have thrown in the towel. In that time frame, like between when I decided, or when I showed it to my sister and she said, here, let's show it to this person. Kind of while that was all going on, it was like a multiple month period. I had found out, I had applied on a whim, but I found out I'd gotten into Juilliard for playwriting. So it was sort of like, well, I can't just quit. Like I was just given this gift that a lot of people would like to have, so I should take advantage of it. So I think that helped me then to just like focus on playwriting for a while. And then years later, I was like, hey, I still want to do that book thing.
A lot of writers do a lot of different projects. How do you sort of manage various projects, working for TV, writing plays, and then writing a novel?
I don't do it. I don't manage it well. I'm still trying to figure it out. Like right now, as I'm talking to you, that's why a smirk came across my face. I have to rewrite an episode for a staff I'm on right now, the TV show called Servant. I have a screenplay that's due next Thursday after I got a 2-week extension. And I just got notes yesterday from Warner Brothers on my pitch. I'm pitching my latest novel as a series. And after Labor Day, we're going to network, so I have to do rewrites on that. So I'm kind of just nuts and like just trying to figure it out. And it's like, there are times when I think, well, I should probably sleep now. And it's like, oh, I should eat a meal. And it's just been a very crazy, busy time, but good. Like, they're good problems to have, but it's been a lot. I haven't really figured out how the juggle works yet. I've just been kind of going insane.
Yeah, this is Daughters of Jubilation that you're going to take out. That's exciting.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks. We'll see how it
goes. Yeah, you described working in TV with Kings, right? Michael Green's Kings on NBC.
That was the first one I did. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, great, insane. Like, you had a bunch of different ways of describing work, the big ramp up from playwriting to working in a TV room was a big adjustment. Could you sort of go into that a little bit?
Well, yeah, because I didn't know what I was doing at all. Like, it was so random that I got hired for that show. And that was like almost 11 years ago now, such a long time ago. Yeah, it happened that they were shooting in New York. The writer's room was in New York, which is where I lived at the time. One of the co-executive producers was also a playwright, and he and I had the same playwriting agent. She reached out and said, they're looking for a baby writer, staff writer, to be in this room. Are you interested at all? And I thought, okay, whatever. She sent me the pilot and I read it. I interviewed with them. I guess it was like a Thursday afternoon. And then Saturday night, she called me and said, you start Monday. Oh, okay. So I had to call, I was working a day job as a copy editor for a financial magazine at the time. So I had to call my boss at her home in Hudson Valley on Sunday and say, yeah, I'm not coming to work on Monday or possibly ever. So I actually was able to help her find a few replacements. And then I jumped in. And when I say like I didn't know anything, like I didn't have final draft. Like, they had to put it on my computer and I had to like play with it to learn how to use it. Like, I literally just didn't know what I was doing. So I was kind of like into the fire, but I learned a lot, but it was pretty crazy. It was definitely a steep learning curve.
And so when did you come out to LA?
I came out in October of 2018. But and I was mostly here, but I was a little bit back and forth, and my husband was still in New York at that time. But then I made the permanent move in the August of 2019, and then he came out with me and we found a place.
And what was that transition for you like?
For me, at first, for a while, even like, it was kind of a breath of fresh air. I've been in New York for like, I guess 18 years at that time. And I was, since like 2000. I was feeling pretty beaten down by the energy of the city, like to the point where I was like, I don't know if I could get on a subway today. Like I would have that energy because there was just so much humanity like in your face all the time. And I was like, am I getting too old for this? Like the things that didn't bother me in my 20s are starting to really get to me. And I found it really exhausting, and I missed space. I felt really kind of cramped. And so it was actually this kind of lovely thing. Even when I first came out and I was sort of Airbnb-ing it and subletting. So I was sort of like kind of a nomad for a while before I found a place. Even that I kind of enjoyed, strangely. I was just like, okay, here's a new adventure. I'll pack lightly. Like it just made me sort of think about what was important in a different way. And I have to say, like I suffered from depression. I think the sunlight made a huge difference. That there was just sun every day. My mood just like skyrocketed. Like and it's not a small thing to say that like suddenly not being worried about money all the time made a huge difference in my life and in my mood. So I think that it's only been good. I mean, I'm talking from a funny perspective because I don't have a driver's license, so I'm one of those people out here that's sort of just trying to kind of make it through and get by. But so far, knock on wood, I've been able to do it, and I'm not tired of it yet. I still feel like there's a lot of adventure out here to find, and I've been liking it.
Yeah, when I first came out here, I didn't have a car for the first year, and I bet so many people were from other places, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm not doing the car thing." And I thought that was so great to see LA becoming less of a car culture.
It's kind of cool because I feel like even like 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it, but because of rideshare, like it made things so much easier.
So, what would your advice be for, in terms of just life or whatever, about moving to LA to work in TV?
Based on what I've seen from some of my good friends who are out here, I don't recommend coming out here until you have a job. I know people feel differently about that. I know several people who were like, I'm just going to be there. I'm going to take the meetings. And I think that that's great. I've seen people get really miserable and depressed out here when they're not working and they're waiting and waiting to break in. Like I know somebody who I won't say, obviously, wonderful writer, wonderful person. He's been out here 4 years and he hasn't broken in yet. And that takes a toll. Like that's exhausting and it's not really fair. So that's kind of the first thing that I would really advise, is to make sure you have like tip top writing samples, and I would get a job before coming out.
And you mean a TV job, not just a job, although that
yes,
would be good.
That also helps, but I actually mean a TV job. And, it took me a little while before I could break back in because I kind of left. Like my experience on Kings was kind of weird. And I just felt like I hadn't really done much as a playwright yet, which I hadn't at that time. And I was like, I want to be an artist for a while. So I kind of stopped and just focused on playwriting and teaching for a number of years. And then I got tired of being poor. So I decided to come back. And then coming back, getting like that second gig, that took a while. It took like a year and a half or something. Like I took multiple meetings, and I started to think, is part of it because I'm on the East Coast and they don't really believe I'm going to move out for a job? Like I just wasn't sure. But I really am glad that I waited until I got picked up to come out. What else would I say? I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing, because I can't really describe how hard it's been on some people that I've seen out here. And then there's this weird thing of like, the longer it takes to break in, it starts to feel like it gets even harder, and which I don't understand, but it's a weird business. It's a really strange business. So you definitely want to have your foot in some kind of a door, I would say, before making the move. And it's hard because I feel like so many people are trying to break in. The assumption is, oh, you're trying to break in. Yeah. And it's like, because of that, and people are like, I've heard it so much, then it's like disinterest. Like I don't even really want to talk about it. And you can feel dismissed out here. I think it's important to just not give a shit about that as much as possible, and just to like really try to connect with the shows that you like and get found. Because if you get mired in like the whole networking and that, which I don't do at all, like I don't schmooze, I don't go to parties, I am totally like socially awkward. But I think like getting into that kind of side of it, lifestyle, can be kind of damaging and sort of death to art. So.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, it's important to have a community, but your community could be a variety of different things. It doesn't have to be just the networking thing, right?
Totally. And you can have a community of like TV artists, but they're just TV artists and they're doing work. And it's not about, hi, can you give my script to so and so? Like that's where it's kind of deadly.
I love this thing that you had said, write like you're addicted, even when you're not, which kind of speaks to the feeling of like, you write no matter what as a writer, whether you feel like it or not. So is there some tried and true kind of things that you do to maintain momentum?
Honestly, lately it's just been about fear of shame. It's like humiliation, because like the deadlines are just there and they're coming. And then, and I used to be the person where I'd always make my deadlines, but suddenly it's like, oh, when you have many at the same time, it's a little harder to do that. It's so funny, this extension I got. I never used to be a person of like, can I get an extension? But like I needed it, and I'm still like panicked. Like, am I going to make it? I hope. So that's really been the thing lately, is that I just have to do it, or I'm going to feel really embarrassed and possibly piss some people off, and maybe like, mess up some contracts. So it's complicated, but and that's another interesting thing, is when money gets involved. And I hate that this is true, because we live in such a fucked up capitalist society, but it starts to feel like the stakes are higher. And I don't know that that's right. And I don't know that I think that that's good, but it is true. Like, you start to think, oh, they gave me X amount of dollars, I really need to turn in the script when I said I would do it. So it's really that kind of thing. So I guess stress is what's been pushing me lately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, no, well, it sounds like it's working though. It's working for us.
To some degree.
Yeah. So is there anything, do you have time for inspiration? Is there anything so how do you unplug? Sometimes like after a long day, of writing or doing whatever, I'll just like need to turn on something just to be like, you know what I mean? There's like watching TV that doesn't feel like, but it's research and I enjoy it and I love it. And there's sometimes I just like watch something that's like season 7 and I know the show, but I'm just like unplugging. So is there something that you do that helps you just like do that?
Yeah, there's always a period at night, usually like dinner, like 6:37, where I eat, and I'm not really good after that as far as working, and sometimes I have to push anyway, but I think it's diminishing returns, because I work better in the daytime. So usually at that period, I kind of veg a little bit on the couch with my husband and watch TV. And yeah, some of it feels like research. Some of it I purposefully will be like, let's watch this because it doesn't feel like research, just to like really like refresh a little. But yeah, it's hard. Like, I've been trying to figure out ways to kind of unplug more, or like to have, and I want to start meditating more daily. I was for a while and I kind of fell off of it, but because yeah, it's like, I'm very fortunate, but it is stressful. So I'm trying to juggle all of these things and actually do it well. It's hard. So I'm working on it. It's a work in progress.
So what's one of your favorite shows to just like unplug with?
Let's see. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is so embarrassing, but Forensic Files. And like, we've seen so many of them, but it's like the DNA that I don't know, because I so don't like do that kind of like procedural thing. I just find them like, I find that kind of interesting and weirdly relaxing, which I don't know what that says about me, since we're talking about murder.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when I was watching you, which I really enjoyed, it's an intense show. I found it to be intense, because it's about obsession and all this stuff, and
Right.
so it has interesting humor. The characters are great, but it's also very dark. So is that,
Sure.
if you're writing it, do you get affected by that, or are you just behind the scenes and it doesn't kind of affect you that much?
You is so much fun to write for, because it's, particularly writing for Joe Goldberg, that is such a bizarre headspace to like be in. And what's really fun and subversive about it is that in the room we'll start talking about him, and there'll be times when we'll be like, well, would he do this, would he do that, and it's like, well, I would never. And then we think, wait a minute, I'm not a sociopathic murderer. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like we start to identify with him because we can't help it. Like he's on the page so much, and we're like following this journey, like extended over seasons. But I think it's a fun challenge, and it's fun to like have to have that conversation with yourself, even when writing. It's like, wait, am I giving him too much credit here? Like, is it? And I think that's kind of fun. But yeah, I don't ever feel like, I mean, that room is actually kind of a fun room. Like we laugh and joke a lot. It's funny. The first year I was there with season 2, we had a Christmas party with the This Is Us staff, because they were like right above us. So we like kind of had a combined Christmas party one day. And it was funny talking to them and them talking to us, and like the energies. And they're like, wow, we hear you guys laughing all the time. We're like, oh yeah, we're just so goofy. And like, yeah, we don't do a whole lot of that there. Like, yeah, we deal with, cancer in Vietnam and stuff. I was like, oh yeah. And I love This Is Us, but I was like, yeah, I guess it's not as fun a room. And I don't know what it is. Maybe we all just kind of have wicked senses of humor, but yeah, we don't get too bogged down in that regard.
Well, it's funny. I think that comes through because when I was watching it, I had the same sensation where I was like, oh no, about like this guy.
Wait a minute, catch him. Like, why am I worried about you? I'm on a show right now called Servant. I'll just give plugs. You can watch seasons 1 and 2 on Apple TV right now. We wrote season 3, we just wrapped. Now I'm writing for season 4, and that's the final season. And that's also a dark show. Like, it's like dead baby. Like, yeah, there's some creepy stuff going on in that show. But it's fun if you like horror, like thriller. It's that kind of thing. And The Flight Attendant, I also worked on. You can watch season 1 now on HBO Max. I was not able to do season 2. Like I think they're in the room right now for that, but I'm actually, because I'm on Servant, I wasn't able to do that one.
Yeah,
so those were just plugs.
No, I mean, those are great shows. I mean, Flight Attendant is like, I mean, the pace of that show is amazing. I wonder, does the room mirror that pacing? Because I imagine everyone's like drowning tons of espressos, or just like the conversation is so intense.
There's a lot of coffee runs in that room. There was a lot of coffee. We were about 8 weeks in, and we were starting to break episode 6, and we were told to stop because they wanted us to go back and start over. So we had to like throw out all of these episodes. It was fun.
And it has an interesting comedic element to it. Are there comedy writers in there, or?
There was a comedy writer, but that's the funniest thing ever. It's like being nominated for like outstanding comedy for an Emmy, which is really funny because we're just like, we didn't know we were writing a comedy. Which it is, I guess, but it's just funny. It's funny how things get received.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I loved it so much, was that I found it there to be funny parts to it, and always came in places that I didn't expect it, and I love that, in dark areas, like dark.
That's cool. No, I think that we thought it was like, oh, it's like a thriller with some comedic moments.
And since Servant is also a psychological thriller, but it has the horror elements. Had you worked in horror before? Do you like horror? Do you watch a lot of horror?
I love horror. I've been like a horror fan from way back. Like, I actually feel like even some of my playwriting has been influenced by like Korean horror and different things. The film that I'm 2 weeks behind in is a horror movie for Warner Brothers that I'm working on. So yeah, like I don't know where that started or where it began, but that's possibly my favorite genre. Kind of the thing I would love to do a little bit more is like kind of finding that sweet spot where horror and comedy meet. I think they're actually really similar.
Yeah.
It's a hard line to walk, but that's something I would love to do at some point. I'd love to find that show.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to see that develop in your life as well. That sounds great. Horror comedy is one of my favorites. Do you remember your first horror film that you saw, or one of them?
It might have been Nightmare on Elm Street, actually. Trying to think if that's the first one I really remember. And I think I was like 8. Yeah, and it scared me. It really stayed with me and scared me. But I realized that like I kind of liked that feeling. I liked even like being like, I'm gonna have a nightmare, but I really thought that was kind of cool. I don't know. Strange.
Yeah. I think that's like maybe a playwright's brain or something.
Maybe so.
Well, thank you so much. It's been so great to have some time to chat with you, and I really appreciate you sharing your journey with us, and I'm looking forward to more of your projects and more of your writing.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. This is fun.